Morning, Facebook. Hope you are all doing well this morning. Thank you for joining our live stream Q&A that we're going to do this morning about synchronization. My name is Sarah Thorson. I am the Beef Marketing Manager for GenX, and I'll let Justin introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody. Justin Hergenrader here, the Director of Beef Sales for GenX. Just kind of started our newer into this role, starting back in March. Actually, I was previously employed with GenX as the Beef Large Herd Development Manager. So excited about a new role and new things going forward here for 2020.
All right, great. Well, thanks for being on with me, Justin. I know I've done this the last couple years and was excited that you were willing to jump on and answer some questions with me this morning. So as we go through this, feel free to type any questions you have into the comment box, and I'll be monitoring those and we'll get your questions answered. But to start with, Justin, maybe let's just talk a little bit about some of the protocols that the Beef Repro Task Force uses and why we think those are so important and where people can find those.
Absolutely. So if I got to give a shout out to Mike first. Mike, I see you on there. Hey, buddy. So if you guys actually, if you have the GenX Beef Genetic Management Guide, if you turn to page 86 and 87, all the protocols that are actually approved by the Reproduction Task Force are actually in the back there. So a lot of time, energy, man hours, dollars, a lot of energy spent going into making sure that these protocols are accurate, that they do what they do. The biggest and probably foremost thing that I would tell everybody out there, I know we get questions every year. It doesn't matter when we start, spring or fall, is, oh, hey, we did this. Can we kind of fudge this or can we do that? Guys, I'm telling you, please don't. Just stick to the protocols. They're there for a reason. Folks a lot smarter than all of us combined have put a lot of time and energy into those and making sure that they're the most accurate that they can be and that they do work. So by all means, please use that. Please access that. Probably a few things that I would mention going forward in terms of your sync protocol that you guys are going to use at your own place is probably first and foremost, use the one that works for you. Dang sure that it fits your cattle, it fits your program, it fits your timing, it fits your style in terms of what you're doing there. I know that when we're out in the field, a lot of what we actually use, like especially on mature cows, is we just kind of stick to a 7-day CEDAR protocol. And then on the heifers, as long as you got your ducks in a row, I'd highly recommend that 14-day CEDAR protocol as well. But do realize that when you do start that you are 33 days away from AI dates. So that one can sneak up on you pretty fast. Even for us at home here, we're kind of June 1 breeders, but here all of a sudden we're not very far away from May 1 that we need to be thinking about putting CEDARs and heifers here pretty quick, even ourselves. So the 7-day CEDAR protocol does work very well in heifers as well too. Probably gives you just a little bit more time to kind of have things rolling and everything from that. But like I said, they are on page 86 and 87 in the management guide back there. Please look those up. And then if you guys do have a chance as well, I dang sure have to tell you, if you guys haven't downloaded the GenX Beef app, please do. That is an extremely useful tool, not just a way to access sires, but dang sure all those protocols are actually on the app. You can access that. It works the same way that you can just put your AI date and when you want. There you go, sir. Appreciate that. When you want to actually AI those cattle, and then it does all the math backwards for you. So it'll tell you when your CEDAR out date is, when your CEDAR in date is, and everything going forward from there. If you actually use your calendar on your phone, you can add it to your phone and set some reminders from there. If you're working with some other folks and you actually do some custom AI work, you can actually do that from the app and then send it to their calendar as well too. So extremely useful. So please use that.
Yeah, I know I've gotten a lot of feedback from people that it's a really great tool. Because before you have to get out the calendar and you have to count 0, 1, 2, and it can get confusing. But it does all the work for you. It's foolproof. Like Justin said, you can text it to your help or whoever's working with you, add it to your calendar. Makes it really simple. And I know when I first started working with GenX, I attended a conference and someone said, the most important protocol is the one that you can give the right cow the right shot on the right day, and that has always stuck with me. I get calls every spring, Justin, and I know you do too. In fact, I just got one the other day about they pulled CEDARs too early, and what do? And I don't know. I mean, we can try to troubleshoot that, but the protocols we know that work are the ones that are in the book, and that's why we stress it so much to stick with the protocols.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Well, let's hop into. We've gotten a couple questions. Justin and I have a couple topics we wanted to cover. So if you guys have questions, we're not getting to them. Go ahead and send us a comment on the chat, and we will get to you. But first of all, Justin, before we get into too much some of these questions, why don't we just hit right away? What are best practices for needle size, injection location, those kind of things when it comes to AI?
Yep, absolutely. So for us and our team, and Dankshire, what I recommend for our customers as well too, when you do start with the needle size, I would probably recommend an 18 gauge needle by 1.5 inches. I'm not saying that you probably can't get away with a 16 there too, but we do have probably the best luck, the best results probably with an 18 gauge. Going forward from there, I would highly recommend everybody kind of follow BQA standards from that. If you guys haven't had the chance to go out, I know ourselves and our entire team every year, we get BQA certified from that end. Usually if you work with somebody, there's usually somebody local in your community there. Actually, it's either very minimal or even at a free cost too. But Dankshire try to follow those BQA standards so we can stay within reason at the same time there. Probably a few other things going along with that. Guys, I'm huge on stockmanship. I've been on some big projects, and I've been on some just the local, even 20 head projects. And I'm telling you, stockmanship will even, dare I say, make or break your synchronization protocol, but it will. Probably first and foremost on that is if you guys are going to have anybody that does help you in terms of either some custom work or even just a neighbor coming to help or something like that, get people who believe in what you're doing. I have seen one guy on one program go out there who's just kind of kicking rocks and everything, and man, why are we doing this? And how come we don't turn out a bull, la-di-da-di-da. And that's infectious in a negative way, and you don't want those kind of people there. I'm telling you, less is more, and get people who are positive and they're excited about what you're doing. Get the people who want to stop by in 9 months and see those AI babies. Get the people who want to even come when you get those calves weaned and stand by your side when you're selling those calves when they do bring a premium. I mean, get those guys who are excited to help you. Less is more, and an extra 20 or 30 minutes by taking some time and slowing things down just a little bit will probably get you more pregnancies. And at the end of the day, 30 minutes wasn't much time to give up for a few extra pregnancies too. So take her nice and easy, get folks who believe in what you're doing. And then I'd reiterate exactly what Sarah said too. Find the protocol that works for you, that fits your operation, that fits your facilities, that fits your time constraints, and a few other things from there too.
All right. So Justin, I'm going to see if I can pop it up here. A question. We might not be able to see the whole question. Someone sent us a question on private message. I'll read it to you. If you give a prostaglandin and heat detect for 5 to 7 days, is it okay to go ahead and do a 7-day CEDAR protocol in the non-responders that are left? And if so, when would you recommend doing that?
Yep, absolutely. So we actually, I work with a couple of outfits that actually do just that. They give a prostaglandin shot. Typically, that'll start to set in within 48 to 72 hours. So you kind of wait 3 to 5 days afterwards, and they'll heat detect out to 7 days, and then do exactly what you just said, is start a CEDAR protocol from there. What those operations actually do is they actually wait until day 10 just to be sure if something wasn't going to come in or anything from there, so they can start fresh. I'm not saying whether or not, obviously I'm not a vet, but from that end, but they do have a lot of luck waiting actually just until day 10. So just another 72 hours and then start your CEDAR protocol from there moving forward. But yeah, they do actually have tremendous luck with that. And then they actually do get some of those non-responder cattle to kind of kick in, and they actually get them bred that year as well.
And I know, I mean, there is the 6-day CEDAR protocol in the book, which is an official protocol that's kind of along the same lines, where you give the prostaglandin and heat detect for 3 days before you start the CEDAR. And I mean, I think it's mimicking very much what we're talking about here. But I mean, the advantage that I just see here is, you know, if you're going to do a sync protocol, the costliest part of your protocol is probably going to be the CEDAR. So if you can eliminate some of those CEDARs by giving that prostaglandin shot and doing a little heat detection on the front end, and then using those CEDARs on the cattle the females that didn't cycle that really need a little extra help, then that can be really beneficial to your breed up, I think. A follow-up question from that is, when is the best time to go to grass after timed AI, Justin?
So what I'm going to tell you on that one is I'm going to give you out to day 5 after AI. I would prefer that you, after timed AI, that you have those cattle on grass within 72 hours, or else you probably need to leave them put for 45 days. Like I know, for instance, for ourselves at home, quite a few operations around here, and then Eastern Colorado, some big outfits that we deal with out there, is we'll do a timed AI or either a split timed AI. And as soon as those females are AI'd, they're actually loaded on trucks. They're hauled about 45 to 50 minutes, somewhere in there, and then they're put right on the grass. And we have luck year after year. So, like I said, I would prefer that you move them within 72 hours of AI. I'm going to say some research shows that you can probably sneak out to day 5. I'm a little questionable on that even myself, but obviously we've been in some situations where, a heavy rain comes in, roads get nasty, something like that to that end. But that would be my recommendations if we can do that, or else, like I said, I'd leave those girls sit for about 45 days to make sure we don't disrupt anything.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, if you just think about the physiology of the pregnancy there, those first couple days, implantation hasn't occurred yet. So you're not disrupting anything in the uterus by changing the environment or moving her or anything like that. So that's why those first couple days, like Justin mentioned, are so important. And then once you get past those first 72 hours or so until about day 45, those are the most critical days. Implantation is happening, attachment to the uterus, all that kind of stuff. And disrupting the environment, even doing a big feed change or anything like that, can really have a negative effect. So, certainly, I know at home we struggle with that every year because we need to breed cows close home and then they need to get out and move right away. But you just have to be smart about it so you don't undo all the good work you did with your AI protocol.
Oh, absolutely. Sarah, I just, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Justin.
I was gonna say, actually, I got a text here from a few folks watching, and they were asking about CIDRs and when they can put CIDRs in terms of how many days postpartum we need to use, and then whether or not we can reuse CIDRs. So kind of a two-part question there, but we'll answer in that order. So, guys, for our recommendation, I wouldn't put a CIDR in a cow who's any less than 21 days postpartum. And I even struggle with that, to be real honest with you, but I'd use that as a hard number. For me, myself, and a lot of the outfits that we work with, we try to make sure that average postpartum day is probably around day 40. So then actually when they're actually getting AI bred on like mature cows for a 7-day sink, they're actually getting bred on day 50. If they actually get AI'd there and you kind of do your math backwards and everything from there, you're still well within getting a cow, in her 365, you're actually probably closer to 330. So if she gets bred right, then you actually saved yourself a cycle and a half, kind of getting her moved up that way too. So those would just be kind of our recommendations. In terms of reusing CIDRs, I'm not going to recommend that, guys. I'd follow what the bag says there. They are issued for a one-time use. And I get it. They're dang sure not cheap. I know that we struggle with that year in and year out. We've got some really good, connections and even some really good friends that work with some of those drug companies. And we always rub them about, God dang, guys, are we going to get CIDRs down or not? Unfortunately, it's probably just always going to be that fixed cost right there where it is. I know it's expensive, but at the same time, is if you are reusing CIDRs and something doesn't get right and everything like that, you cause an infection in a cow and a few other things. For saving the $5 or $6 that you were, that got pretty costly. When all of a sudden you start causing that in your cows, you're causing late breed ups, you're causing infections and a few other things too. So I would recommend following the label and using clean CIDRs myself.
Sure. So Leslie had a follow-up question back to the discussion of hauling and going out to grass. So after times, it's not the grass, but the act of hauling them to grass. And Leslie, I think the answer to that is it's kind of twofold. Hauling can be stressful. It can raise the body temperature, which can have a negative effect on, that early embryo if implantation has already occurred. But also, we do want to try to avoid big change in diets. That can have a negative effect. We do know that there's been research that shows that. So if you can try to, the fewer things you can change after breeding, the better you're going to be. Wouldn't you say, Justin? I mean, the more things that can stay consistent.
Yep, and so I guess a slight follow up on that one too, and some issues that we do run into on heifers is whether or not those heifers have been on grass and they actually know how to graze, or if they just know how to go to a feed bunk. Probably the big thing, and I'd follow up with Sarah on that too, is nutrition. Is the last thing you want is for those girls to be on a steady plane of nutrition. You get out to grass and then they crash because they don't know how to graze, they don't know where a feed bunk is, and so all of a sudden they start losing weight. That's something that we dang sure don't want to see as well too. So whether or not, depending on what your breeding setup is like, if you've got some grass or even just some pasture or something like that those girls can go out and run, I'm not opposing to bringing those cattle in and feeding them at the bunk and developing those heifers. I'd probably say 80% of the people in the country do that. But at the same token, is those girls need to know what it's like to go out to cover some range, to be able to exercise, to stretch their legs, but not lose weight while they're doing it too.
Yeah. And so kind of on that nutrition question, I think that plays into a lot to the females being good candidates for AI. We've been in situations where maybe we don't end up with the AI conception rate that we thought we should have had. And then you start doing some investigation. And of course, it could be the semen handling. I mean, it could be so many things, but nutrition plays a big role in that. So Justin, what do you recommend as far as making sure that the females that you're presenting for AI have the highest chance of getting pregnant?
Yep. So in terms of nutrition and obviously on a heifer development program, if we can stick to that pound to pound and a half a day in terms of gain, I think that's probably going to fit you extremely well. Probably the biggest successes and biggest failures that we see is just those dramatic changes in nutrition. We've shown up on some heifer projects where the cattle have been, plenty thin, even 60 days out. And we just said, hey guys, can you bump these girls up? And an increase in that plane of nutrition has actually helped some of that breed up too. But we have to also keep in mind on the other side of what that cost is going to be to get those girls there. And then at the same token is we don't need them to be over in flesh as well too. So there can be some negative effects, especially if we get those girls over conditioned from that end. Probably the biggest thing, like I said, just that consistency in terms of plane and nutrition.
Right.
So whether or not it actually, even if you go to grass, even if you take a little bit of hay out there, for the time being or something like that, just so that those girls can adjust to their new environment and they don't go downhill in a plane of nutrition. We've been the same way where we've shown up to some projects. Cattle were in perfect condition. We're kind of gaining that pound and a half a day. Cattle looked great. They got turned out, and then they were probably even losing a pound a day for a little while. And that one really hurt us. So just that consistency would probably be the biggest word that I'd really push there.
And I think that applies to mature cows too, as well as heifers. We always talk about if you do pregnancy checking in the fall, that's a really good time to body condition score your cows. And if you're set up where if you have some thin cows and you can separate them and give them a few extra groceries going into calving, because I mean, we all know once the cow calves and she's raising a calf, she's not given any extra to herself. So if you get to calving and you realize your cows are a little thin, then it's almost too late to make sure that you're set up for success the next breeding season. So even with cows, it starts way before calving season, even for nutrition.
Yep. Yeah. If you're going out there the day you're putting in CIDR thinking, oh, these cattle are a little thin, we need to get them, you're too late.
Right. Getting a couple more messages in. So Mike Denton says, like our dairy folks utilize the benefits to a setup shot or shots of prostaglandin prior to a CIDR protocol. So giving prostaglandin prior to CIDR is kind of what we talked about before. Has there been any research on that, Justin?
I'm trying to think of any, and help me out, Sarah. Have we done research?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what Mike's referring to is maybe like a pre-sync protocol that they do a lot on the dairies where we do a couple of shots of prostaglandin. And Mike, I'm not aware of really any research that has been specific to the beef industry. I mean, I'm not sure why it wouldn't work other than we've just utilized CIDRs so well, so that's probably part of it.
And I'd agree with Sarah on that one there too, Mike. I just off the top of my head, I'm not saying that there's not research out there. I can't think of any trials here as of recent or whatnot that when we get to those meetings that we've talked about that we've done. I would dang sure see that there is a benefit, especially if you're not afraid to put up some of the cost up front them there too. I know probably the difference in on that versus the dairy folks of like there is just access to those cattle. Whether or not we're actually bringing those cattle in, whether or not they're off a pasture or something like that, versus a freestall or or a dry lot situation on a dairy where those cattle are easily accessible. But there's no reason why it wouldn't help, in my opinion.
Right. Another question, Scott asks, when would you suggest to inject long-range wormer in relation to AIing? Justin, you have some advice on that one?
I do. I'm going to tell you to call your BI rep. No.
That's fair.
In all seriousness, though, do call those guys. We've been very fortunate actually through the spring in quite a few of the meetings that we've done. They've actually helped us at some customer meetings. And, I'll tell you from the results that they've got, the trials that they've done, it does look like Long Range is a very, very good product and a good product to use. The meetings that I've sat in on and listened to, I've heard it anywhere from even if you give it 30 days before, and I know that there's not much, well, I guess we're over here in the West, so we don't have much green grass at all yet. But that there has been some indications to show if you even give it 30 days before AI that'll actually help, just because you're kind of helping those cows clean some of those worms and some of that out of their system. Otherwise, I would probably just give it before you go to grass. But dang sure call those guys. Their numbers are easily accessible. Those guys, I wouldn't say there's a BI rep on every corner, but they do a very, very good job of covering cow country. Give those guys a call would be what I would recommend you do from there. And then they can dang sure give you the specifics on that. But everything that I've seen, the presentations that I've sat in on, is they have shown very, very good results using Long Range.
So Justin, along those same lines, what do you usually recommend to people when they're looking at giving pre-breeding vaccines or pouring cattle? A lot of time, we know these sync protocols, you're looking at 3 or 4 times through the chute. So man, it sure would be nice if, we got them in the chute once, putting seeders in, we could also maybe do those pre-breeding boosters or do some of that other work to eliminate a trip through the chute. What are your thoughts on that? Oh, Justin says he can't hear me. We're having some technical difficulties. Justin, can you hear me now?
I can't hear you.
Sorry, folks. We're having some technical difficulties. Terry says she can hear me. Justin, are you there now? No? I can hear you. You can't hear me. All right. Well, maybe we'll get it back. It seems like some of you guys can hear me. Maybe you can hear Justin too, but not Justin can't hear me. I'm going to send him a text really quick. Okay, we're going to see if we can get Justin back in a minute. We lost him. In the meantime, I'm going to keep answering some of your questions. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Technical difficulties. All right, got another question here. Janet asks, if you have used EsterTech patches and are heat detecting, do you recommend still giving GnRH injection at breeding to the cattle? Or
I can hear you there.
Okay, good.
All right.
We got Justin back, folks. Okay, so I was just about to answer a question from Janet. She said, if you have ever used EstroTech patches and or heat detection, do you recommend still giving the GnRH injection at breeding to the cattle that are definitely in heat, or just to those that are not showing signs of heat?
Yep. Awesome question, Janet. So there's actually been some research done on that one. So if you give that GnRH shot, it's not going to hurt anything. So if you don't mind putting that in there, there's no problem with that at all. But if you do want to save on that, the research that we've actually been involved with from that, and our cohorts out there too, is there has not been very much difference in terms of actually giving that GnRH shot versus not to the animals that are definitely in heat, or they've got a rubbed EstroTech or a rubbed heat detection. So if you want to say kind of that, I want to say they're usually about that $2 to $2.10 per shot. That will be some savings back in your pocket, and you should be just fine, just as long as you can make sure, like you said, whether or not you're using a heat detection aid or even yourself, you can save on that shot and be just fine.
All right, another question from Cole. What are your thoughts on Multimin 90 4 weeks before calving and 4 weeks before breeding? Does it help conception rates and just all around repro health?
Yep, cool. Very good question. So that's something that we were actually involved in every year in the same way we do a lot of meetings with those folks. They do a very, very good job of showing, I guess, the results that do come from that Multimin 90 product. The same thing, I would consult your veterinarian. That is a script drug, so make sure that you do consult your veterinarian before using that. Some of the research and the trials that the Multimin 90 folks will show you will actually show that there is an increase in conception when you actually go through and you look at their research too. I know that they've worked with some universities and some other aides from that end, and they've gotten along extremely well with that product. So the same thing, consult your veterinarian, because like I said, it is a script drug, but dang sure log on, look at those folks. They've got the trials and some of the proofs to go behind that when you actually log on to the Multimin 90 products there too. So, yep.
And I think I think the Multimin question is a great question, but even if you're not looking at doing an injectable like that, I mean, just a good mineral program is important.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's see, another question here. Leslie asks, I've heard that some sires just click better with certain cows than others, given all things are equal. Any truth in that?
Leslie, that's a good question. I'm not going to say it's a rigged question, but I guess I'm going to kind of answer that to the way that if I'm understanding your question there. So in my opinion, I do think that there are some sires that, just given if you've got a group of inconsistent heifers or even inconsistent cows, that when all mass mated to the same bull, you will end up with a more uniform calf crop. I do believe that. I know that I actually work with quite a few of our heifer sires from there, and whether or not some guys are just purchasing some cattle, whether or not they're local, whether or not they've got a load out of Oklahoma, a load out of Missouri, a load out of Wyoming, and a load out of Montana, and they put them all together. And obviously, just because of geographical area, the cattle are different from there. I will recommend certain bulls from that, because I think at the end of the day, those bulls, regardless of mated to kind of that compound group of cattle, will end up with a more uniform calf crop, that those calves are a lot more merchandisable later on in life from that, for that reason. So I hope that answers that question, if that's kind of what you were getting at.
And again, guys, if you have questions, just keep asking them in the comments. So one thing that we haven't talked about yet, Justin, is we mentioned heat detection aids a little bit a couple questions ago, but if somebody is going to heat detect, I mean, obviously the research tells us that the majority of mounting activity happens that 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., so those overnight hours. So knowing that, what are some best practices for heat detection if someone wants to heat detect?
Yep. So first and foremost, if you are going to heat detect, is, if you're using, I would take a pen and pencil and leave your phone in your truck or something like that. In 2020, we spend way too much time on this little device than we probably all want to admit. But nonetheless, is when you go out there to heat detect, make sure that you're out there to heat detect. Make sure that you're not out there texting. Make sure that you're not out there taking calls. And I know that sounds simple and minute, but I've been as guilty of it too, of when you're paying attention and then you pick up your phone to answer a phone call and you look up and you're like, well, it was the Yellow tag one. Yeah, that's, geez, which heifer was that? So when you go to heat detect, make sure you're heat detected.
Right.
I would recommend that you get there plenty early in the morning. And then, like Sarah said there too, with as much activity as we do have at night, is I would make sure that you can stay as late into the night as you can too. Obviously, be feasible with that would be my opinion too. I don't see any reason that you need to be out there to 10:30 at night or something like that, burning the midnight oil. But nonetheless, you are going to see a lot there. The other thing that I would highly recommend, guys, I don't know how many thousands of Estratechs I use every year. Those are a great product. They are inexpensive. And I'm gonna have to quote my good friend Jerry Jones here. I don't know of another product that will probably make you as much money for the $1.50 or $1.65 that they cost. Your return on investment for an Estratech is second to none. It really
Yeah.
is. So the same way there, read the instructions on the back. You probably do not need to paint them on. You don't need to glue them on, anything like that. Just make sure that they are warm enough when you do put them on the back there. It is written in red what temperature you should probably have them putting on. But I will tell you, like when we're going through some of the breeding barns and stuff like that, when we do use another adhesive or another glue or something from that end, and those folks do want those Estratechs off of those cattle before we turn them out to grass, it takes me longer to rip an Estratech off of, I shouldn't say rip, but it takes me longer to pull an Estratech off of a heifer than it actually does to AI that heifer. So
Yeah.
glue does work. Just follow the label on the back, read the instructions. You'll get along great with the Estratech products.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like Justin said, getting them warm is really the key. And I mean, it can be pretty simple. If you know, turn the pickup on, hit the defrost, and throw them up on the dash to help warm them up, or
We've done that. I've seen folks. We get pictures from a lot of our good reps out there, and they're always. I mean, I enjoy them. Is the creativity from that? Water bags that they'll put up there next to the chute. I got a picture from some guys down south. They put a crock pot out there next to the chute and even put them in. No water, nothing, but just put them in the crock pot to get some warmth on them that way
yeah.
too. It's just get them to that temperature. They work well. I promise you.
So back to the question that Leslie asked earlier about consistency. She said she was thinking more about the conception rate of sires, and maybe I'll take this one, Justin. Is that we know, I mean, semen, regardless of where you buy it, if it's from Gen-X or one of our competitors or a custom collection facility, it all has to undergo rigorous tests, qualifications under the microscope before we even freeze it, and then again post thaw. So there's minimum standards before we freeze, thaw, and sell semen. But what we do know is that there are differences in sires that you can't see underneath the microscope. And what exactly is that physiology? We don't really know. No one really knows. There's a lot of research being done about it, but and when somebody figures out, it'll be the magic bullet. But what we have done at Gen-X is we have what we call our Preg check number. And that is, we have used hundreds, thousands of units of semen on these bulls and gotten real live pregnancy check data back. And then are able to analyze that, and we can assign a number. So we know which bulls perform better than others. And it all looks the same. It all passes the qualifications under the microscope, but there is just something that happens in the cow that makes it better, I guess. So like for our Preg check number, if we have a number on a bull, we publish it. It's in the book. It's on our app. 100 is average. So basically what that would be is if you use a bull that's Preg check 100, whatever your normal conception rate is, that's what you would expect with using that bull. If you get above 100, so let's say a 102, that would be, we expect to see about a 2% bump to your conception rate using that bull versus a bull that's 100. Or we also have bulls that are less than 100. So that means they're less than average. So if that's something that unfortunately, we don't have numbers on every bull. We're getting as many tested as we can, and we're getting more all the time. But it is just a good rule of thumb. While you're flipping through our book, take a look and look for that, and then you can see which of those bulls. And like I said, it all passes the qualification to freeze the semen and ship it out to you guys. But there's just something there that we don't quite know the answer to.
And Sarah, if you don't mind, I'd add something onto that too, Leslie, is, it's something that I always tell all my customers, all the folks out there too, is that preg check number in the book is not made to deter you from any of those genetics. Like Sarah said, all the semen that comes out of our Gen X facilities has been tested. It's been put through rigorous tests. Actually, I guess I'll get off on kind of a side note, but the amount of semen and the amount that we actually that doesn't pass those high specifications, the amount of collections that actually get tossed out, because that would actually surprise you. And so I'm not saying that our bulls are bad, but our specifications are that high that we actually, what we do produce is that high of quality. So it is not made to deter you from any of those genetics. It's just made to give you a stance from there. So like if you're breeding 20 head of heifers, not to say that that won't help you or hurt you on that 2%, but when we step in and we breed 1,000 head of heifers, 2% on 1,000 head of heifers is a lot of pregnancy and a lot of dollars at the end of the day. So something that we dang sure look at, especially on those large scale AI projects. But if you're not using Gen X semen, that's something that I would ask our competitors whether or not they do have that number or not. So it's something that we put a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of research into, and something that we dang sure stand behind as well.
Yeah, and it's actual breedings. I mean,
yes.
This semen has actually been put into cows and pregnancy checked, and there's data behind it. It's not. I mean, we introduced Preg Check, I think, about 5 years ago. Yeah, and before that, Justin, I mean, we knew that there were bulls that were better than others. I mean, we would talk, coworker talk, like, hey, but we didn't have any way right. We didn't have any way to quantify that, but now we have the actual data, which is really exciting.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So another question, Kelsey asked, trying to minimize trips through the chute, can you feed MGA to cows? And if so, what is the protocol? Have a mixing box so feeding isn't a problem.
Kelsey, so I've had that question a couple times here in the last couple of years, and unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you on that. I know that there's not a cow protocol that involves MGA, so whether or not you're going to do that or not, you're probably kind of going to be on your own and up in the air of what protocol you actually use. And the biggest reason for that is consumption. Why MGA works, and especially where it works on those heifer protocol programs, is controlled consumption. So the folks that we do have on heifer projects that utilize that, they feed in the bunk. I know specifically a few operations here not too far from us is they'll feed a half ration first, let them slick that up, and then come back with the second half to get them their full ration. But that's how they know that controlled consumption got in them and the heifers there. We've had some guys kind of even do some experiments themselves on whether or not they use a range cube, like you said, a box, something like that. But it's just obviously we know probably more than not when we are AI and cows is they're out on grass somewhere somehow. Obviously you've been around cows long enough to know that there is going to be that dominant cow that's probably going to eat twice her weight what she needs, and there's going to be a half a dozen off to the side who wait and kind of get the slim pickings too. So that's where probably you're going to run into some issues. But unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you there. I actually haven't even talked to anybody who's really done it with any success either too. So I don't, Sarah, if you want to add anything on there, but.
My only comment is, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think it would be off-label use. I think it's not labeled for use in lactating cows. So, I mean, that would be another thing to check on. Another question came in from Mike. When using synchronization with sex semen, how do you change your protocols? Thoughts on that, Justin?
Yep. So that one, there's a lot of research being done. And the same way, like I said, Sarah, when we get some of this figured out, it is going to change, I guess, hopefully, in my opinion, the direction that we actually do a lot of things. I think it'll actually change the industry, in my opinion, with some sex semen stuff. From there. But what my recommendations would be in some of the research that has been done, unfortunately, there's nothing in the book yet on that, but I would probably do like a split time AI protocol and only use that sex semen on those responder cows at time of AI there that morning. If you've got any estrotechs that are only, just starting or anything like that, I wouldn't use that high dollar sex semen in there. And then in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, if you are doing any heat detection with sex semen, is we've had some luck kind of backing off and maybe breeding those cattle at 18 hours instead of kind of your typical AM, PM rule, your 12 hours somewhere in there. If you can back off and just give them a little bit more time, I have seen some success there too. So like I said, that's not a protocol in the book. That's just my opinion, some of the experiences that I've had with it, but that's would be my suggestion.
No, I think that's good advice.
I guess to add to that, I guess some folks, if you are listening, you haven't used the split time AI protocol. What that would entail is your standard, like if you're just going to use your 7-day sync plus seeder, there is at time of AI is go ahead and breed anything with an activated EstraTech patch, and then anything that does not have an activated EstraTech, leave them pinned up, leave them overnight, and then breed them the following morning, whether or not end up being 20 or 24 hours later, and then breed those following cattle. And we actually end up capturing some more pregnancies that way too.
Right. Let's see. Another question. Eric asks, for heifers, what would be the success rate difference of a heat detect and time AI like select sync plus seeder with timed AI over a 7-day co-sync plus seeder? What are your thoughts on that, Justin? Maybe I can pop the heifer protocol up there so we can, oh, that's the wrong one.
The success rate heat detected time AI. Yep. Okay. So Eric, for that, anytime that you can actually heat detect those cattle, I think that you are going to get some more pregnancies from there. Just because you're working with those cattle on an individual, probably a more individual basis in terms of what you're getting. In my opinion, where we've actually got in terms of a timed AI program, as long as, like we talked before, if everything's right in terms of nutrition, your mineral program, everything was done correctly in terms of getting your sync protocol set up and the rest of that, man, I think that we've got this time AI thing down, that we captured a lot of pregnancies just doing that without adding any extra labor. I'm not knocking anybody who does any heat detect AI. I've got a lot of friends in the purebred business that they won't do it any other way, and that's fine. That works great for them. At the end of the day, for myself and what I do in a lot of those large herd commercial projects from there, time is of the essence. We need minimal times through the chute, and we need to get those cattle back out on grass and doing what Mother Nature intended, and turning grass into pounds. And so the less time that we're in those cattle, the less time that we're around those cattle, we actually maximize those guys' profits from there too. So, but like I said, in my opinion, as long as everything's right, then you dang sure have the right crew, the right folks, and everything else is in line there. We've got timed AI set up that we get some excellent results just off of timed AI itself.
I would agree with you, Justin. I always say I'm not knocking heat detection at all, but heat detection is only as good as you are at heat detecting is really the key.
Yep.
So if you're set up, if you're using an EstraTech patch, if you are following the things that Justin talked about earlier, the early morning, late evening, staying off your phone, only heat detecting, then you can probably help yourself a little bit. But if it's going to be a time crunch, you're not willing to do some of the extra things, then I think, timed AI, like Justin said, we're so dialed in that it's pretty much a horse apiece for most people, I think.
The other thing I would add to that too is, depending on your group and your size of cattle that you're actually working with, in my opinion, and going back to that stockmanship, is like, let's just throw out a number of 200 head of heifers. If you've got that and you're trying to even pull early heats or do a little bit of heat detect or something like that, to get in there and pull 3 to 5 head, obviously if they're used to your horseback or something like that, then that's fine. But in my opinion, is you get in there and you disrupt 200 head to get 3 head out, and the chances of you actually getting those heifers pregnant because you're going to put stress on them because you're not bringing in the whole group. We haven't had even that good of luck at getting just those 3 done. So in my opinion from that is move those cattle as a group, let them be with their contemporaries, and that fixed time AI works fantastic.
Right. So another great question. Jacob asked, for AI on first time heifers, should a breeding soundness check be done, or just age and percent of mature weight? What are your thoughts on that?
Yep. So if you have the opportunity and you have a good relationship with your vet, or you can get a hold of a vet and do a breeding soundness exam, I would highly recommend that. You get those heifers in there, get a ReproTrack score on them that scores from 1 to 5. It'll eliminate, and it's not necessarily say that your 4s or 5s or any better from there, but dang sure identify those ones and get those cattle probably either out of the program somewhere else that they don't need to be a part of. That dang sure helps. I do run into a lot of folks every year that say, man, Justin, I bought some heifers, and that's fine. I got no problem with that. Go to your local sale barn, go to even your neighbors and buy them. But just because you've got a 7 weight heifer doesn't mean that some weren't born in January, and maybe some were even born in late March. So the difference in terms of age, the difference in terms of puberty is going to help your success rate there too. So if you can and it's available, I would dang sure look at ReproTrack scoring those heifers. If not, what I would tell you from a visual standpoint is make sure that you're probably seeing 50 to 55% at least in terms of activity of those cattle kind of bulling before you actually set up any kind of CEDAR protocol or AI program from that end. Make sure that you are seeing that activity. The same way you can kind of do some simple math backwards. However many heads you have, figure them on a 21 to 28 day cycle and divide that, whether or not you should be seeing 3 or 10 head in a day. But you can actually kind of do a lot of that visually too. But if you do have the chance to ReproTrack score them, it's a great tool, and you'd probably be surprised at some of the results too.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you, Justin, that just knowing, even if it's just like you said, visual, knowing that those heifers are cycling prior to, putting the CEDARs in or starting the MGA or whatever your protocol is, will really help determine what your success is going to be, because these protocols are meant to synchronize those heifers, get them all cycling at the same time, not make them start cycling if they haven't reached that maturity yet. So you can't force them if they're not there.
Yep.
So back to Kelsey's question about the MGA with cows. Boyd actually came in and said that MGA is approved for use in beef cows, but not dairy cows. So I'm stand corrected, but we don't like Justin said, we just don't know. There isn't really a protocol there, Kelsey. Bobby asked, and we kind of addressed this, but maybe worth addressing again. What about reusing CEDARs, Justin? I know we talked about this a little bit.
Bobby, come on, man. Guys, I'm with you. I'm the first one to complain about CEDAR costs. I am. But at the end of the day, open cows cost more. So, I mean, for you guys that do reuse CEDARs, that's fine. I'm not going to recommend that. I'm not. So, from that end, for my opinion, for the $11 or $12, or I'm trying to even think whatever they are right now, so they're got to be right in that range, is getting that cow set up correctly, not causing an infection or anything like that, and getting her first round conception AI. I promise you that calf coming out that much earlier, gaining that much more weight, and being an AI baby will offset the cost of that $5 or $6 that you're going to save on a UC. So that's just my opinion. You guys can do what you will at home, but I think that we can make up that $5 or $6 pretty dang easy. I really do.
I would agree with you, Justin.
Sorry, Bobby, I had to tease you.
Jake asked normal Lutulase or Hycon, and I guess I would piggyback on that. Any difference between any of the products, Justin, or what do you see?
No. So the same way every year we go to the task force meeting and a few others, and they actually have grad students who do research actually on this, and have every year that I've seen since Hycon has come out. And the results really show no definite answer one way or the other. So the products work just as well one way from that. Depending on what you're doing with your cattle, whether or not you can market them under some different labels or some different names, might help you in terms of some use on the Hycon from there. But in terms of actual results, the studies have been done year after year. I don't know how many thousand head of cattle that they've done it now, and there hasn't been any definite change in terms of actual pregnancies, Lutulase versus Hycon.
And I would say, I mean, that goes with the GnRH products too. I mean, I get asked a lot, which one's the best or what do you recommend? And I think more than recommending one product over the other, it's just making sure that you're utilizing it correctly. So, if you're doing a normal Lutulase, make sure you're giving 5 cc's versus a Hycon, which is 2, or, that you're storing the drugs correctly. Hormones break down pretty quickly, so don't set them on the dash of your pickup truck and let the sun beating down on them. I mean, just make sure that you're doing best practices with your synchronization drugs is going to be more important than what one drug over the other.
Well, and to follow up with that one there too, I'm sorry, Jake, sorry, but even like myself, I'm an Estromate man. I really am, and it's a great product. It's the ease of the use, the 2 cc's. I know that dang sure I can use my 18 gauge 1.5 needle. I'm in the correct spot. I know that we've got all 2 cc's, put in the female correctly from that. So that's the same way. It's just an ease of use, and I'm all about making things easy, making things quick, making things useful. So that's like I said, just for me personally, that's the product that I use.
Well, Justin, man, and it's been almost an hour. That really flew by for me, anyways.
Fair enough. I guess real quick, I'll throw in another one here. I got another text here too. So asked about opinions on pre-breeding shots and vaccines. The same way, guys, first and foremost, consult your veterinarians on any and all of this, especially with their script drugs. But some things that we have seen, like if you guys are going to do any bangs vaccinations or anything like that, you probably need to make sure that you're probably at, I'm going to say 45 to 50 days out, Sarah. I mean, is that going to give us a good range from there? If you are using killed vaccines, you can probably get a little bit closer. I know that some guys, they'll use that 14-day CEDAR protocol. And so when they actually come in that first time there, whether or not they're using a Poron, whether or not they're using a killed vaccine or anything like that, they can actually use it as another reason, or excuse me, not just a reason to put CEDARs in. They can actually get a few other things done through that trip, through the shoot too. So, but like I said, first and foremost, consult your veterinarians on that, especially when they're modified lives or their script drugs. Absolutely.
Yep. No, I think that's a good point. Just looking through my list, and I think we hit most of the topics that I had, unless you had any, Justin.
Yeah. The only other things, I got another question here too, is whether or not you can actually use Estratx to determine any pregnancies. And the answer is yes. Ooh. So, well, the same way I have to quote my friend Jerry Jones on that. But yeah, if they've actually done the trials there too. So if you guys have a chance, call the Estratx guys, get on that website and look at that. They spend a lot of money and a lot of time with universities doing that research from there too. And they can actually prove that what they can do in terms of identifying pregnancies, identifying first heats on heifers, and a few other things too. So like I said there before, for that $165, it's a huge return on investment for that inexpensive little patch. So heck yeah. Yep.
One more question came through here. Bobby has another one. When giving shots, which is best to use, a 3cc syringe or a multiple dose syringe for accuracy, Justin?
Oh, I'm going to get teased on this one, Sarah. I don't even want to admit it. Bobby, I give individual shots. I really do. And I work on a lot of projects. I work with a lot of great stockmen and women who use the auto guns, and we probably see just as good a results. I'm that guy that when we've already spent the time, we've spent the money, we've got the cattle in, I want everything to be as perfect as I can make it. So I sit there when we go down the alley or we're in the chute, and I pull the little 3cc syringes out, and I make sure that every dose is, like I said, when I use Estramate, I make sure every dose is 2 cc's, that we've got it there. If something bucks, if something breaks, we fill it up again and we do it right. So I catch a lot of slack for it. I do. That's fine. That's just my opinion. That was a Stan Locke deal. I'm a Stan Locke protege, but I do. It's accuracy. So like I said, I'm not knocking anything from that end, but I personally, even when we get 500 head of heifer, something like that, at the end of the day, I don't think I add that much time to what it took to process those cattle just to give those shots that way. So that's just me. You can do it how you want at home, but that's what I do.
Nope, I agree with you, Justin. I think it's just, I mean, you said it. There's so much, when you think about the cost of your time and the, setting them up and the synchronization drugs and the semen, and just to think that that's one little thing you can do to get just that much more out of your investment, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So,
did you have any other questions on your end, Justin?
No, I think everybody else is just teasing me on text here is more so what the rest of it is.
All right.
I'll get them back. That's all right. I guess or go ahead, Sarah, if you've got anything.
No, go ahead.
The other thing that I would tell you guys, I know this was about synchronization. But nonetheless, if you guys do have any questions, like I said, make sure that you consult with your veterinarian. Obviously, from there, but our names and numbers are in the front of the book. We can tell you obviously our experience, even some of our recommendations from that. And then obviously moving forward, guys, we are getting into spring breeding season here, pretty heavy. So if you guys do have any questions on any sires or need to make any orders, by all means, please give us a shout. We're here to work for you guys. We dang sure we want your business in any way that we can from there too. So not just about synchronization, but about bulls, about even helping with some marketing, a few things like that. Full service here to work for you guys. The other thing that I would tell you, obviously, is kind of some other things that are going on in the country. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But when you are ordering with Gen X, make sure if you could get those orders in often and early. Obviously, just with like I said, the way the country is, so we can make sure that we get you your product in time too. So.
Right. Well, Justin, I want to thank you for hopping on here with me today. It was a lot of fun, and thanks everybody for their questions. We'll keep an eye on the question feed throughout the day if there's any new questions that come in after this is done, and try to answer any questions that come in afterwards. But it's been a lot of fun visiting with you guys this morning, and good luck on all your breeding projects this spring. We'll see you down the road.
Absolutely.